Jai Shri Krishna, Jai Shri Ram, Assalamu Alaikum, praise the Lord, Sat Sri Akal, and praise to all the religions. Because today I'm going to tell you a universal topic, and that is about all the people in this world. That is that a few group of people are cheating you with currency. So I want to tell you something today, and that is called the fraudulent banking system. How the banking system is cheating you every day. And today we're going to see the big points about Indian banking and some big points about world banking, etc. So let's start with this. The RBI, the Reserve Bank of India, by the way, which is the Central Bank of India. Some people might have questions about the Central Bank of India. That this Reserve Bank of India is generally government owned. It's totally government owned. And it actually has no Rothschild or Rockefeller or Illuminati or whatever it is. It has none of that control, and only these foreign banks have that control. But well, I'm telling you that the foreign banks are very important to Indian banks. There's a big connection with the Federal Reserve and the RBI. The Federal Reserve has total control over the RBI because you might say that the RBI is independent, it's a nationalized thing, and it's like belonging to the country. But I would tell you that the Federal Reserve is such a powerful institution that has managed to control the finances of the entire world. And also the Federal Reserve is such a powerful institution that none of the people who are present in other countries have been able to even touch it. Only the big bankers, the foreign bankers, are able to control the Federal Reserve. And the RBI, which controls the rupee, and the Federal Reserve, which controls the dollar. Of course, I would tell you that the rupee is pegged to the dollar. So the amount of the dollar coming to India, the import and the export of the dollar is all based on the Federal Reserve dollar. Even after Richard Nixon's breakdown, I would tell you that still there was the same monetary system of all the currencies being pegged to gold. It's like this, all the balloons. So basically, RBI might have been totally government owned. But what about the Government of India members? What if they are controlled? The same thing is with Bank of England and Bank of France. They're all nationalized. But again, you can see that there's an indirect control. It's a backhand control. It's like fighting a war with the left hand and shaking hands with the right hand, the same person doing the same thing. That's what is happening. So every single rupee in existence is a unit of national debt. So it is a big problem. So in a sense, the US dollar and the Indian rupee or whatever it is, we are all doing our finance based on a particular amount of debt. Is that a nice thing to hear about? Economists might say it's very important to have that kind of a system or anything like that, but a debt-based system is totally a burden on you and your next family members. I would say that the national debt, gross national debt of a country is surely affecting you and your family members. A rich country has lots of debt. It's like saying you borrow thousands of millions of dollars and say that, oh wow, now I'm rich. Well, you're not rich. You're rich with debt. You're not rich just like that. Greece was actually very rich with debt. What happened to it? Being rich with debt is not nice. Even a normal person can understand this. It's not nice to be rich with debt. And that's what is happening to every single country on this world. Every single country is going to debt with some unknown entity that the country members do not even know. Ask Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister of India, whether he knows that the banking system is really controlled by anybody, or whether he knows that the currency is totally a debt to the higher class of people. Ask any political member whether they even know the fundamentals of currency, whether they even know what is currency or money or what they call it. They have no fundamental idea of what it is. And it's just ridiculous if you don't have any money to live on. If you rest your life on currency, money and currency is totally different. So a government can just print so much currency and your purchasing power might go down. With gold is not like that because gold is naturally available. Silver is naturally available. Copper is naturally available. Copper is, you can start melting a lot of copper. But gold and silver especially are precious metals. They are classified under the precious metal thing. So nobody actually can print gold or print silver. So they can't demean your purchasing power. No government can start demeaning your purchasing power because governments are not good. You can easily see that no government is controlled by the main member like the Prime Minister, etc. It's always controlled by somebody who has lots of money to pay off the Prime Minister to do some task. And the Bretton Woods Agreement, of course, was between all the nations like UK, US, China, Japan, and India. I mean, not India, but the UK. The UK government was the time owning the entire of India, the UK empire. So the UK was also pegged off to the US dollar, the pound, and every single currency in this place was pegged off to the US dollar. Because of this Bretton Woods agreement, it was just ridiculous that inflation was rampant and the purchasing power of people was going down. It's like having only $100 and an apple is worth $60. So it's so damn difficult. So gold has always been rising in its price. That shows it is a stable currency, one that continuously rises in its purchasing power. We're not talking about price here, because once the commodity by which you buy gold is non-existent, we need not talk about the price of gold. People who already have gold will benefit a lot. So one day, if the economic collapse happens, you'll be knowing that gold will be the best opportunity for you. But at that time when the economic collapse happened, gold will be non-purchasable. And people who already have gold will stick on to their gold. They won't sell their gold because the currency is virtually useless. It's just pieces of paper. And then we have this. The Federal Reserve, the BOE, the RBI act in the same ways. They force the country to get into debt. They loan the country lots of money. And whether they are owned by the government or not, the debt is to somebody else. The shares of the RBI are just worth a few crores. But I would tell you that the national debt of India is worth billions. So if the national debt is more than the shares of RBI, don't you think that there is another element which controls the debt of the country? That's what it is. And also along with this, bankers legally steal. They actually get money out of wars, they get power out of wars because they create economic disturbances. That means that whenever a war happens, there's surely a big crisis and countries start borrowing money heavily when there's war, and also when there are public unrests or civil wars, there's a need for money. So those countries start borrowing heavily into debt. And once they borrow heavily into debt, those countries get into big trouble. Well, some countries have managed to just just keep pushing the debt ceiling higher and higher, like the US, which has got off to a debt ceiling of about 25 trillion. The last figure was 22 trillion. So they've just gone to that level of debt, and they're managing to sustain the debt, not paying off the debt, just keeping the debt, so that the percentage of the working people, they keep paying off for the debt, and but the government does not utilize it for paying off the debt. Instead, they utilize it for now. So basically, every single government on this earth is doing things so-called good for people. Well, it's not good. I shall explain to you later why building millions of homes for people and giving it at low rates is not good for the economy, and eventually will come and kill the poor who have bought those homes at lower rates of interest when they take loans for homes. I shall explain that rule of economy later on, but now we know that bankers have been legally stealing from every single person. They use this fractional reserve system, and by that they are able to make so much money. They use the QE system to degrade the currency and meanwhile buy off gold or silver or whatever it is from people. They have used the government and the Senate or whatever it is to make acts like the Federal Reserve Act and establish whatever they want to do, because I will have to tell you the history of the Federal Reserve later on, but I would tell you that for now, the Federal Reserve Act was totally controlled by big members of the Rothschilds, the Rockefellers and Warburgs, etc. And the current chairman of the Federal Reserve was called Jerome Powell, and he's called Jerome Powell. His name is Jerome Powell, and he was working at the Treasury, he was working at various banks, and now he's working at the Fed. That means previous relations with big banking institutions and current relations with IRS, etc., surely show that they're stealing the people. They're actually doing whatever the bankers say. And at the time of those bailouts for banks, well, the people who got bailouts for their banks and their companies were actually inside the Fed. like General Electric, and we had so many other companies who were sitting in their offices, and at the same time were sitting at the Fed and just getting trillions of dollars out of the Fed and putting it into their companies. That's like, putting the nation on debt and enjoying yourself. How nice is that? So you just sit on a chair of the Federal Reserve and say, hey guys, just give me $385 billion and I'll make a good profit for my company. Oh well, that is a loan to the country. That is actually a system of open market operations, and by that you're giving loan to the country, you're giving a debt to the countrymen, and you're enjoying on their behalf. Like you're actually enjoying with your companies instead of giving all the money to the people who actually deserve it. And then we have this overprinting currency. Is also one of the bad habit of these big bankers. They actually print the currency to an oblivion. That's like QE1, QE2, QE3. They're printing it crazy.
Can you just show the hand?
Sorry?
Can you just show the hand?
Yeah, here. So QE1, QE2 and QE3 are all quantitative easings. That means that they're actually printing currency to an oblivion. That causes inflation. I told you that when the currency is expanded at a high level, the prices keep soaring up. So that's called inflation. So actually, when the currency is printed so much, there is no store of value. So the rupee, the pound, or the dollar, or the yuan, or whatever the currency is, will be actually worth virtually nothing when the currency is printed so much. So everybody has crores of rupees, and why would anybody sell their product for just 20 rupees? They would of course try to sell their product for more. That's where inflation comes from. But what about people who don't have the money? So it's like this. You print 20 crores and give it to two people, 10 crores each, and then you say that's lots of money, and you start raising the prices. That's what's going on. They're giving money out to people and making the money useless and switching on hyperinflation. And when hyperinflation goes rampant, it's sure that people actually don't they just don't care about their money. They start spending, etc. But suddenly the thing becomes useless. The currency becomes totally useless. And you can show it here, Abhigya.
But yeah, actually the battery is gone.
Actually, my sister made a mistake in the camera work. She doesn't want me to tell you. My sister actually made a camera mistake, but she doesn't want me to tell you. So let's begin now. So actually, now I'm going to tell you about the dollar and the RBI and the connection. So the RBI is very close to the Fed and the dollar because any international transaction made in the past with India has been with the dollar. Now they bilateral trades, and that's also another scam, as I'll tell you later on. But for now, I'm telling you that the gold is getting out of your country. So every time our country repatriates some gold, the gold is immediately sent out. And this happened even before. When we had the 1991 crisis, the Indian government sent out 67 tons of gold off to the Bank of England and the Union Swiss Bank. Just imagine. And also it pledged 100 tons of gold with the IMF. And then it bought back 200 metric tons. Just imagine what India had done. Sent out so many tons of gold. So actually, Germany has half of the gold reserves in the New York Bank. Venezuela had gold in the Bank of England, now it's repatriated and then sent back again to Goldman Sachs, to various other countries, big countries. And Ecuador, Netherlands, and Austrian citizens all are trying to repatriate their gold. Even it's a problem to even repatriate your gold, because the big bankers will again take back that big sum of gold, because the bankers like Goldman Sachs, etc., they just want all the gold to get back to them. That's what they're trying to do. And you can see public debt has been skyrocketing. I don't know how much it will be in the next few years, because some people are saying, some economists have been speculating that it's going to be $50 trillion US debt, because it's constantly rising. Please go and check the US debt clock and you can find out how fast our debt is rising. There's a description, there's a link in the description box of the US debt clock, and you can check out that one. And every time there was a crisis, the government of the US responds with more debt. So every time there's a crisis, it's just more debt. They start printing more money. So whenever there's a crisis, there's hyperinflation. The government starts printing even more money. Just keep the hyperinflation longer because they don't have any problems. It's the people who suffer on the streets. Of course they do. And 1935 was the creation of the RBI. I'm giving you many reasons for how the RBI is really controlled by these guys. Not only that, I would like to tell you one more thing. That is, in the documents of RBI, there is one document called preparatory years. Sorry. There's actually one document called the preparatory years. It's called the preparatory years, and it's a very important document. And in this document, we have a special writing that says Mr. Rothschild has given a plan for the the Central Bank of India, saying that it should be modeled after the Bank of England. How atrocious is this? So the Bank of England, which was a private institution and had destroyed the country and brought it into heavy debt within the wars, etc. And I think that Rothschild also wanted our country to also have the same thing. Please check the link below of this preparatory years document. And in this we have Mr. A. de Rothschild, that is Alfred de Rothschild, a Jewish Rothschild family scion, who was also he was an officer at the Bank of England, not an officer, director of the Bank of England. And later on, he actually came to India and did some so-called services here. I don't think that's a service. A big banking family scion who has already controlled many banks in the world. I don't think he'll be coming here to do a service. He had proposed the Bank of England in India, a bank modeled after the Bank of England in India. So he has done such a thing, and by this, the economy of India went down. And in 1935, the creation of RBI, it was a private institution. Only 1949, after 2 years of independence, we got final nationalization of that place. But as a bank gets nationalized, it's actually easier to conceal the problems that it does. So if RBI is trying to do something creepy, the normal person can't know what it's doing. But if it was a private bank, it would be susceptible to court cases and lawyers and all of that. But when it's nationalized, I don't think the secrecy would be that revealed to the people. Nationalized banks can operate more secret because they stand in the nation's, the nation's good. Well, private banks stand for their own good, capitalist, crony capitalism, and national banks stand for nation's good. I don't think so. National banks have always caused problems to nations in the past. The Federal Reserve has caused big problems. The Great Depression was because of the Federal Reserve. According to Milton Friedman, a very great economist, a Nobel laureate economist, he said that the Great Depression was caused by a severe contraction of currency supply by the Federal Reserve, and that resulted in this big problem. And I'm telling you that the RBI is nothing but a puppet of these big guys. It's a bank to destroy Indian natural resources. They're looking at natural resources. And they're looking at human resources, of course. They're looking at these two things. To do these two things, they have to throw the country into poverty. And when they throw the country into poverty, people start succumbing. And when people start succumbing, of course, they gain power. This is what they do. They have done to every single country. I should explain how they've done to Venezuela in the future episodes, and Greece also in the next episodes. But now we know that India was a puppet of the international bankers. You've seen many big facts like that. You've seen facts about Rothschild. You've seen facts about international robberies like the Bretton Woods Agreement, pegging currencies to gold. And you've also seen things like repatriation of gold and how it's just brought back. I should explain how Venezuela has lost its gold through crisis management, so-called crisis creation by big banks. Goldman Sachs is one of the world's biggest banks. It is also controlled by big banking families. Of course, private banks do not reveal their entire history, but national banks also do not reveal their entire history. They might reveal their entire history, but they can do their operations in a concealed fashion. So, we've seen all about this, and now we should come here. One more point is that fiat currencies actually have a value of 0. I'm just doing a point. Fiat currencies actually have a value of 0. Where there's any hyperinflation, the fiat currency goes down to its intrinsic value, and that is 0. So you can't expect any fiat currency to stay more than 100 years or 200 years. It's going to collapse someday or the other. And I'm going to tell you, the dollar, the rupee, the pound are all on the verge of a huge collapse with a stock market collapse, which I shall explain later. But for now, let's know that this particular huge collapse is induced by the big bankers. So let's see this now. The Indian Banking Regulation Act. This will itself tell you how the fractional reserve banking part. We have seen how these open market operations happen in India. We've seen how India is controlled by big bankers. Now let's see how India operates in its fraudulent fractional reserve banking method. So you can just check out this statement. It is in a banking textbook. So I shall show that to you later on. But yeah, it's there in my 3-hour episode. So here, accepting for the purpose of lending or investment of deposits of money from the public, repayable on demand or otherwise, and withdrawable by check, draft order or otherwise. This is what the Banking Regulation Act says. It defines banking as this. Accepting, just hear this carefully and see how it denotes the fractional reserve system. Accepting for the purpose of lending or investment of deposits of money from the public, repayable on demand. How are they going to actually repay it on demand? It's very impossible. And how is it going to be withdrawable by check, draft, order? Who's going to withdraw all of that? From where? There's no money. Once it's lent out or invested in another place, that money is not existent in this person's account. It's like giving some 30 rupees to somebody else close to your family, and they lend it out to somebody else. So you actually lend, your neighbor comes and gives you 30 rupees and you keep it with you actually supposed to keep it with yourself, but instead you lend it out to somebody else, and once you lend it out to somebody else, that money is not present in your hands. It's there, but it's not present in your hands. So you're actually, but what if you write down on a piece of paper 30 rupees and pay them back? That's actually fraudulent creation of money, and that's what is happening here. How are you going to repay? How are you going to repay money on demand after lending it out somewhere else? Are you going to break the investment that you have done? You can't do that. They won't break the investment because they are investing in huge firms. They make big profits out of that. So they'll write down some other money, they just type it off the computers and they send it off. It is fractional reserve banking. This is real fraud. RBI in 1949 actually did the Banking Regulation Act. In that, the RBI became totally government owned. But I would say that whenever a bank becomes government owned, whatever it is, Government of England, whatever it is, whenever it becomes government owned, the operations become more creepy. So this is what happens. Operations actually become more and more creepy as they go forward and forward when it's nationalized, because nobody actually even sees what is happening. Nobody even sees it. And 1935, RBI was created as a private company. And 1949, RBI became a national company. But still, it is operating in the interest of a few very wealthy people, and its operations are so creepy that you can't even know what it's doing. But on a plain outside image, I would tell you that the RBI is totally controlled even on the inside. I've studied a few documents on that. They are present in the description box. So in one of the textbooks of BCom, we have the statement: roles of a commercial bank in the economic development of a country is that banks actually create credit, thereby increase the credit available for productive investment. So they actually create money. That's what it's saying. So they're going to create money? That's very funny. It's like you just typing out some money in a computer and it becomes legal money. Well, that's very creepy. But increasing currency supply like crazy causes inflation. Deposits in banks are not for safekeeping. They are instead for gambling in the stock market, lending it out to others. So if you give your money to some banker, they just lend it out to people like other financiers, and they lend it out to thousands of people, unknown people, and unruly social elements, etc. And they just get the money out and just they invest it in assets, etc. So it's actually not present in your account. It's somewhere else. And I would like to tell you one more thing. There are some unruly social elements like Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modi, an example to India. There are many more examples to other countries. I hope the people of those countries come out with exposures of these guys who have destroyed their countries by taking so much debt. So banks always make it a point to help the industrious, the prudent, the honest, and discourage the gambler, the liar, and the rogue. Hey, that's the point. Well, gamblers, liars, and rogues they were, Vijay Mallya and Nirav Modi. But they still took 18k crore, that means 18,000 crores of Indian rupees out of India, and they gambled nicely. They lost it here and there. I just don't know where they lost it, but they really lost it. People pay the tax to the RBI. RBI gives bailout to banks like PNB, which lost big amounts. PNB, Punjab National Bank, lost huge amounts of money when it actually lent out money to these guys. So the Indian government actually bailed out the bank, but I would tell you, if the Indian government or the RBI is bailing out a particular bank, they're surely bailing out through open market operations. And if you remember from episode 2, of course you should know that open market operations are not for the good of people, they're actually for the good of the big bankers. So banks actually implement, so actually your tax is going out for people, for these big guys to get bailouts. You know, these big banks. They made a mistake by loaning it out to somebody who couldn't pay them back. They filed bankruptcy. But what should we do for that? Are we supposed to get a debt? A national debt which is higher than ever? Should we do that? Should we get national debt which is higher than ever? Banks actually implement monetary policy of the RBI, which is very good for the economy. Of course, the RBI, the monetary policy of the RBI is very good for the bankers, isn't it? Not for the normal people. Well, the bankers are only 1 or 2% of the entire population, the big guys. But the people are actually 99% of the entire population. So we're actually all working towards the 1% to keep them floating, isn't it? So it's actually good for them. They get bailouts if there's a problem. So if they make a mistake or a problem, a financial economic problem, they get bailouts for it. Very funny, huh? They get bailouts for things like that. Then the crisis of 1991, I would like to tell you that that was also induced by these people. Abhigya, please show that place. Where are you showing? What are you showing, Abhigya? Bats? So the crisis of 1991, just as there was a big crisis in the US, so they were in India. The causes of this crisis was, of course, high external debt. That's why I say countries going into high external debt are a symbol of approaching crisis. And every single country today is having high external debt. Here is a small figure, 35 billion in 1994 and 69 billion to 72 billion in 1990 to 1991. But now it's staggering 420 billion plus external debt. And another huge amount of billions internal debt. I think the crisis that might result now would be way bigger than the 1991 crisis. Way bigger. Because the debt is many times more than that. I would say it might be 20 to 30 times more than that. It's going to be 20 times more than that. This is what is happening. So there's a crazy forex reserve depletion. And who controls forex reserves, by the way? It's the big bankers who again control the foreign exchange reserves of a country. And there's actually almost no currency for imports. No currency. And export partners collapse, like US growth was down by 1%. So who does this US growth down by 1%? Who does this Gulf War, etc.? It's the big bankers which create war. So they create war in various countries and then make their exports go down. The exports go down and make the imports also go down, so that they don't get, so they don't pay money to other countries, and they break down the entire financial system. The 1997 crisis, which was also a huge stock market crisis. Stock market, which started in somewhere around Southeastern Asia, spread around the world, hit India and everywhere around. So why is this happening? It's happening because the big bankers are trying to create the world's biggest crisis. They have created such worldwide crisis. They have done it. And by doing it, they have gained more and more control over the economy. And that's what they're doing again. This was followed, and they had this political uncertainty. What is political uncertainty? Congress refuses to perform an act of coalition. They refuse to make a coalition government, and Janata Dal takes over, and then we have this religious and caste scandals come into picture. Media starts playing a big role. They start having religious fights, and this all actually affects the economy. All of this, religious scandals, everything affects economy. So once Hindus and Muslims start fighting with each other, the media just turns Hindu and Muslims away from each other, and then this causes political uncertainty. And then the rulers are starting to be, these political parties are starting to be deeply examined slowly. And when all of this happens, I'll just ask you one thing: who actually induces these Hindu-Muslim fights, these Christian-Muslim fights? Who induces all of this? It's the media and the big bankers. They just want to drive out the public, or they want to create political uncertainty, which in turn creates a crisis. You don't believe me when I say political uncertainty is one of the reasons of a crisis? Well, it is, because the IMF staff have itself revealed in their books that political uncertainty of India was one of the reasons of the crisis of 1991. And big current account deficits, that was also a big problem. The CAD's current account deficits are very important things to consider. Please keep checking what is the current account deficit of India. Then we have this IMF bailouts, economic liberalization in India. We had new economic shifts in India. What does this mean? This means that IMF gives a loan, and by giving a loan, they dictate these terms on India. Economic liberalization. We start accepting these big
Haya, can you
MNCs
please show your
inside.
hand while showing something?
Yeah, I'm showing. I was showing. So these are these MNCs who enter, multinational companies. They actually enter to enhance the economy. Well, I say that the Pepsi or whatever that is, Pepsi, Coke or anything like that, they're all Pepsi, Coke, Coca-Cola and everything. They're all foreign companies. And forget about that. Just think about this one, Patanjali. It's an Indian company, but I would say that this kind of a company is also bad because it's destroying the country. Due to economic liberalization, they have allowed almost every single international company to enter India and suck the blood of Indian economy and Mother India. This is what we're doing. Precious metal exports were not the main problem. MNCs who came in were massacred. The fraudulent banking system and the fractional reserve banking is a fraud. Bank credit is a lie. Central banking is a scam. These are all main points that we have to know. Precious metal exports are really big problems. But the rest of them are bigger problems than that. We are selling our country to big guys. The world is entering a big political, economic and social crisis. Why? Because there was a particular system involved. There have been shifts in economic systems. I would tell you that there's going to be a shift again in economic systems. So first we had this classical gold standard from 1873 to 1914 to 1915. Till the World War I started. Once the World War I started, we had another system. But in the classical gold standard, you could go and swap your currency with any other, you could just swap your currency with gold coins. And then when World War I started in 1914 to 1918, that time we lost the total gold standard, and the Federal Reserve Act came there, and there was 0% reserve ratio. And once the Federal Reserve Act came here, not there, it was here, the Federal Reserve Act was there. So it had already made plans for the World War and what it would do at that time. So the system changed for a couple of years in the World War time. Then came the gold exchange standard. So that was like 40 to 60% reserve ratio. And then came the Bretton Woods system, where all the currencies would be pegged to the US dollar. And US actually was financing various countries during this time. So when the World War I was happening, US was continuously financing the various other countries. Like France and Europe, and every single country, they were getting financed by US in the way that they would get gold from the European countries, and in turn, the US would send supplies for their wars, like food and guns and whatever it is. So we were sending all of these items from here, and from that side you're getting gold. So there's a large gold accumulation. The US dollar became very powerful due to larger gold accumulation, and so the gold reserve ratio that they kept on going higher, and the economy was very powerful. So the dollar came high, and that is also a planned thing. As the dollar became a very high thing in America, people started like enjoying because they were becoming rich. But then they did not know that a few years of richness does not matter. But later on, they actually didn't know that these few years of richness are actually a warning towards crisis in the future. Then we had this gold exchange standard till I say this time. Gold exchange standard we had till that time, and there was also the Great Depression at this time between the gold standard. Bretton Woods system was announced, and then we have the dollar standard when Richard Nixon cut it off, and then now we have this forex currency float. So every single currency is pegged to the US dollar, and they just float up in the sky. So there's no pegging to there's no pegging to gold. So anytime the currency can go very, very high, anytime it can go very, very low. So that results in economic crisis. And here we can see that World War I was in the middle of these two places, and we had then we had a war here. We had a war here, World War II. We had the Vietnam War here, and we had the Korean War. And then after these two wars, we had the forex currency float. And now I think we're going to get another war, and the US dollar is collapsing. So what is going to be the new economic system is what I asked, because it's a cycle. It's been getting cut in the middle of a few 30 years, and now it's a longer period of 47 to 50 years. But again, I would like to ask you, is it really going to be very stable for thousands of years together? I think thousands of years is an overstatement. At least for 10 more years, is the US dollar system going to be stable? I don't think so. And then, it's not good for the economy. It increases national debt. This kind of thing. And then we have a nuclear or atomic war. Most probably there's going to be a nuclear or atomic war at this time, because all countries are so-called independent. Their militaries are all like they're ready to fight, and US, China and Russia get too powerful. Most countries are developing nuclear energy. Big powers are consolidating slowly, like China, etc., and they're becoming bigger and bigger powers. Everybody has nuclear energy. Or would it be a cyber warfare? Or is it already a warfare, because US chiefs and North Korean chiefs are already talking with each other? Donald Trump is having a meeting with the North Korean dictator, so-called dictator, or whatever they call him. But still, I think it's all leading towards a huge economic conflict. I don't know whether it's economic or it's going to be war. It's not very sure, because every single country has atomic weapons. And it doesn't look like UN is having any peacekeeping mission here. It looks like UN is trying to create some problem now. UN has a bad history of doing very bad things. So we have seen these two charts. So we have completed the 5th episode. So thank you. Jai Shri Krishna. Jai Shri Ram.